guys, it's Kelly, and today I want to do the try a chapter tag. And I've never done this before, but I always like watching these videos when other people do them. And I think it's great that if you have a whole group of books that you're not sure what you want to read next, it's a way to kind of narrow it down. And since it's October 1st, I really want to be reading some thrillers and mysteries this month. And I have like a huge stack of them on my shelf, and I just can't decide which ones to read next. So I thought this was the perfect time to do the try a chapter tag for thrillers. And I'm going to do it a little differently than normal in the fact that I can't even narrow it down to 5. So I took the 11 books that I am interested in reading, and I put them all in my daughter's little pumpkin trick-or-treating bag, and I'm going to pull out 5, and those are the 5 I'm going to try the chapters of. But before I do that, I want to show you just the titles of all 11, because if one of these is what I don't end up trying, but you have read it and think it was amazing, let me know in the comments, and that way I can put it towards the top of my list for this month. So the first one is Woman in White, and this is actually like a classic thriller. And then I have Room and The Perfect Nanny. This one, if you're from England, at least, I'm not sure where else, it was published as The Lullaby, or just Lullaby. And then I have Big Little Lies, and The Last One, Sharp Objects, which is the last of the Gillian Flynn books that I have yet to read, A Study in Charlotte, Baby Doll, I Let You Go, Rubbernecker, and If We Were Villains. So those are all of the books that are in the Pumpkinhead. And so I'm going to pull one out, read that chapter, tell you about it, and then I'll pull the next one. So I'll go one at a time. So the first one, you might hear my daughter in the background. She's just playing away. Okay, so the first one is The Woman in White. So I'll go read the first chapter of this and then let you know. So I finished the first chapter of The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, and this is a classic ghost story set that was written in like 1860s, and I don't really know much about it. I just heard that it was a good like classic kind of thriller to read. And in the first 20 pages, it starts with a man named Walter, who is kind of talking about a good friend of his that he knows who's an Italian professor, and he had saved his friend's life, and his friend really wanted to repay him in some way, and he finds a way to repay him by, he is teaching Italian to some girls, and their father is looking for a drawing master and asking for recommendations, and this man Walter is a drawing master, so his friend is like, oh, I can repay my friend by getting him this job. So that's how we start the book, of him like learning about this job out in the country, and he is, you know, getting his affairs in order, and he's walking home late at night, like preparing for his journey, when suddenly a woman in white just appears on the road behind him. Not that like she just appeared, but like he feels like she just appears because she wasn't there a moment before. And this woman just is, it's the middle of the night. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning that he's walking home. And so he's like, why is this woman by herself in the middle of the night? She seems kind of distraught and asking how to get into town and how to get a cab. And so it's just his first kind of run-in with the woman in white. And we find out a couple little things at the end of the chapter I'm not going to give away because it is kind of like a little surprise at the end. But that's basically what's happened so far. I wasn't actually expecting to like this book because it is a classic, and I was kind of thinking it was going to drag. But from the beginning, it kind of caught my interest. So I would still say this is in the running. I just want to see, it is very long. It's like 600 pages. So it might be one that I want to save for a little later, but let's see how the other 4 pan out. So I'm going to pick my next book out from the Pumpkinhead. Okay, and the next book is A Study in Charlotte, which is a kind of retelling of Sherlock Holmes, but it's Charlotte is Sherlock's like great granddaughter or something like that. I don't know how she's related. So this is a young adult mystery, so I'll check this out and let you know what I think after the first chapter. I have read the first chapter in A Study in Charlotte by Brittany Cavallero, and first, before I get to that, let me just apologize for the fact that this video is not going to have much continuity because of the day, kids, everything, so I might be wearing different clothes or in different lighting or different places. We'll just see. It's going to take like all day to read these 5 chapters. So I read this first chapter, and like I said before, this is a gender flip, like kind of retelling of the Holmes and Watson stories, and Holmes in this is a girl, and they're both teenagers in high school. And so on the first chapter, it's 18 pages, and we are basically learning about the 2 characters. So this is narrated from Watson, which I did appreciate that because the original stories are narrated from Watson's point of view, so they kept with that. And so we're learning about Watson and how he ended up at this private school, and then we'll meet Holmes through his eyes when he meets her at school and like their first interactions and stuff like that. And I just didn't find this very compelling. Like, I definitely don't think this is the one I'm going to continue right now, because like even in the first 18 pages of that chapter, there was partying and drinking and drugs and fist fights, like all in 18 pages. Guys, please calm down. And if that is just the first 18 pages, all that, I don't know if that's going to be the whole book is full of that. I mean, I understand that there are some of those things in YA books, but like drugs especially are just not something that I agree with and I like reading about. I don't like reading about them of any age, because it's not even just like pot or anything like that in this one. I mean, they are already talking about like hard drugs, and just not something I enjoy having in my literature or books of any type. So I don't think I will be continuing this right now. Maybe someday I will try a couple more chapters and see if it gets to be a little better, or I don't know, just maybe changes into something more of a mystery and not just like rich kids at a boarding school partying, because that's not interesting to me. All right, so that is that one, and I'm going to draw my next book here. All right, and the next book is If We Were Villains, which is this one. And I don't know much about this other than I've heard it's like a group of people that do like Shakespeare acting or something like that, and then kind of like something happens in their group that involves like a murder or something. So I'll read the first chapter and maybe reread the blurb because it's been a while since I've read it, and get back to you. I have now read the first chapter of If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio, and I actually read both the prologue and the first chapter, because in total that was 12 pages? Yeah, 12 pages. And in the prologue we meet our main character, who is named Oliver, and Oliver is in jail, and in this prologue he is talking to a police officer about some incident that we don't know about, and the police officer is asking for the truth about what happened, and this event that he's asking about happened 10 years earlier. And so that is the prologue, and then when we start on the first chapter, it is 10 years earlier, and we're getting the story of the event that is leading up to this conversation. And what I like about this is that, you know, like, it's about actors and things like that. So the first chapter actually starts with scene 1, and so each of the chapters are scenes, which is kind of a fun little thing to do to kind of lend towards the acting part. And in the first chapter we meet our 7 friends, and they're all the Shakespearean actors, and they're talking about auditioning for the play Caesar. And so they're kind of saying what they're gonna use for their audition, and like one of the guys is guessing the roles for each of the people, because I guess all of them play the same kind of role. Like one guy always plays the royalty, and one guy always plays the good guy, and the other one, the bad guy, the villain, the best friend, the wife, you know, all that stuff. They always play kind of the same roles, so he's just betting on what roles they're each going to get. And it sounds like our narrator is the one that just is always kind of like the sidekick or the extra. He must just not be as talented, I guess, as the other actors, because he always gets cast as kind of a smaller role, and or something like that is what my sense is, that he feels like he's not as talented as the rest of the group. And that's kind of all we learn about in the first chapter. The thing about this that was kind of confusing is that we're thrust into 7 characters right away, and so I think it'll be a little bit before I understand who is who, because they each obviously like just had really small snippets in this first chapter. So hopefully I'll get to like know more about each character so that I can keep them straight, because that's a lot of characters to know and follow. But besides that, I found it interesting. Like that prologue got me really intrigued of like, what is this incident that happened that this police officer is still worried 10 years later that he doesn't know the truth? Because it sounds like somebody went to jail for it, but he still thinks that it wasn't, that he didn't get the whole story. Just from that like 2 pages of prologue, that's what we get from it. And that just intrigues me, because whenever there's like a kind of unsolved mystery, I always want to know what the solution is. And this is only like a 350 page book, which I guess is not small, but it's not huge. So I am interested in continuing this. It read really easily in that first chapter. This is definitely going to be on one of my top interest list. All right, so now we're going to draw number 4 from the pumpkin. All right, and number 4 is Baby Doll, which, let me find it. This was a new book I just got, like not necessarily new out, but new to me. I just bought it last month, and this is a thriller about kind of like the after of a kidnapping. So from the back, what I hear is that this person has been in captivity for a while, for almost 10 years, I think, and has found a way to escape. And so this story is happening at the escape and afterwards. So that's kind of interesting, because that seems like a new take on a thriller. Let me see how long this chapter is, since it's taking me a long time to get through these. My kids are napping now, so I should be able to get this. So it's only 12 pages in this first chapter, and the font is actually fairly large for an adult book, so I think that'll go by quick. So I'm going to read these 12 pages and get back to you on this. Finished the first chapter of Baby Doll by Holly Overton, and my goodness, this is really interesting to me. Like, I had a hard time not going on. So it was only 12 pages, but I think it was an action-packed 12 pages that like sucked me in and made me want to keep going. So like I said, this is about an escaping from a kidnapping situation, and the first chapter really is that moment. Like from the very first, the very first sentence is about a deadbolt that is on the door, and like her realizing the deadbolt is open for the first time since she has been held captive, and because she didn't hear the sound of the deadbolt being locked. And so this first chapter is her like realizing that she can leave. And then we're also in this learning about the other person that's in captivity with her, and about a little bit about her life before she was captured. So we learn about her boyfriend from back then, and she has a twin sister. And kind of about the day that she was taken, her and her sister had a huge fight. And so that kind of like regret about having the last conversation you have with somebody being a fight. And so that all happens in 12 pages, and like her escape moment. And like, so that just has me immediately intrigued. And I also noticed when I got to chapter 2 that chapter 2 is from a different person's perspective. It looks like we're going to also get the perspective of the kidnapper. And I don't know if there's more perspectives I haven't looked through later on, but this is really intriguing to me of that, because you don't hear a lot of kidnapping stories from like that moment of this escape and afterwards. And I'm assuming it'll go back to her time during captivity as well. But so far, really intriguing. So I'm excited to read that. But we'll see if another one beats it. So last one out of the pumpkin. This will be the 5th book and last in this triad chapter, and it is I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh, which this is one I've been meaning to read for a while. It's a thriller, and I believe it's about a mother whose child like runs into the road and gets killed by a hit and run driver, and so that, I think that's hence the I Let You Go thing, maybe? I don't know. So that's all I know about it. I've heard a lot of people, though, review it and review other books by Claire McIntosh, so I'm excited to give this one a try. Let's see how long. So this one is 13 pages, so that should go, and actually it starts on page 7, so it's probably only, like, what does that make, 6 pages? So that should go by really quick. I'll be back to you very soon. So chapter 1 of I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh read, and actually I was wrong, there was a prologue beforehand, so it was 13 pages with the prologue and the first chapter, and whew, this is gonna be heart-wrenching for me, because of the whole aspect of being a mother, you know, watching her 5-year-old son get hit by a car right in front of her, like that. I mean, that's what happens in the first page, and just that whole thing is gonna just be so hard for me. I mean, I'm sure it's hard for tons of people, but I know, like, every time I go out walking with my daughter, I'm just like, you know, you always think of that possibility of, like, this, you know, are they gonna run off? Are they gonna wrench out of your arm, like pull themselves out of your arms? Like, it's just like a, you know, just everyday horrible thought that you have. And so this is gonna be a tough read, but I think it's gonna be interesting. You know, just the very prologue is just kind of like the accident itself, and then the first chapter we meet the police team that is going to be working the case. The problem I had with this is that in the first chapter, the author only uses really abbreviations for all of the police information, so like I'm gonna have to look it up because I don't really even know what the like they just call the unit the CID, and I think I'm supposed to know what that means. I don't know what that means. And then, you know, they've got, like, they're talking about PCs and DSs and I don't know, like, they got abbreviations for all the different, like, detectives and police officers and all that stuff, and I just don't know the different ranks of police officers. Like, I just don't have all that stuff memorized. So I might need to, like, check up on some of that stuff if it's important to the story. Especially, I need to look up what CID means. I don't know if that means Crime Investigation Department. I don't... That is my guess, but I should probably look it up. So it sounds like it's probably going to be from the perspective of the cops. The story will be. So that sounds interesting. So that's all 5 of the books. And out of the 5, I think the only one I'm for sure not going to read this month is A Study in Charlotte. I didn't find myself really interested in this, so I'm going to put this away for a while. Like, I'm not interested in starting it right away. These 4 I all found intriguing. I think The Woman in White might be a little long and more in-depth than what I'm interested in right at the moment, so I think I'll put this one down, and I don't know if I'll get to it this month, but I am interested in reading this in the future. I just don't think I want to do it right now because of the length. I'm in the mood for kind of like short, quick, like thrillers that are going to keep me invested and that I can get through in a few days. So I think it'll be one of these 3, and so I want to read maybe all 3 of these this month. So that's Baby Doll, If We Were Villains, and I Let You Go. But I think the one I'm going to continue right now, because I almost wanted to continue it as I was reading, is Baby Doll. I'm just really intrigued on the whole, like, where this is going to go. If this is just going to be about her escaping afterwards and her joining the real world again, or if it's going to go into the depth of how she got kidnapped and all that stuff. So I'm very, very interested in this and seeing and the different perspectives. If we're going to hear from the kidnapper, that might be interesting too. So I'm definitely going to read this one first, and then I will probably continue these 2 later in the month. So Baby Doll wins. I will let you guys know what I think about it when I'm done. And also, I had listed all of the thrillers at the beginning, so if there's one that you read and you really enjoyed it and you think I should get to it this month, let me know, and I will put it towards the top of the list, because I want to read several thrillers throughout the month. So this just happens to be the one I'm going to start with. Alright, I'll see you guys later. Bye.